Absolutely. I think the whole country will accept it in the proper spirit. I have no reason to believe that there is anyone of any significance anywhere in India that is not at this moment accepting it in the proper spirit. But that's said and done. You heard Soli Sorabjee say that there is a certain sense of judicial resolution which this has brought, but then in the very next breath he says this is also not the final judgment. There is an appeal to the Supreme Court.
I said that.
So what sort of, or what value is there to the resolution that you've got? Because the Supreme Court can overturn it, it could endorse it, it could come up with a completely new judgment altogether. So how much resolution have you got?
That is where I think that you use the word that I don't regard that this judgment is very sensible. It does not lead us anywhere. And I want to make one or two more points. One, it is not only against the pleadings of the various parties. It goes against the mandate that was given to the Allahabad High Court when the Supreme Court decided to revive the abated cases. The mandate was restricted to finding out this is the disputed land. Who has title over it? That's one. Secondly,
Can I interrupt? To the extent to which they've dismissed the claims of the Sunni Waqf Board as well as the Nirmoy Akhara and a third party, have they not by default, without saying so explicitly, actually decided the title suit? They shied away from saying it explicitly, but by implication they have.
Why did they shy away from saying it is Ram Janmabhoomi and belongs to Vishwa Hindu Parishad?
No, not Vishwa Hindu Parishad.
It is fantastic.
So in other words, what you're saying is that there are strains in the judgment that lead to a conclusion, but they don't state the conclusion.
There is a basic flaw in their argument. No, please allow me. You see, whenever you talk about that the two communities were worshipping together, they cannot worship together. They were worshipping in different parts of it. For example, the Muslims were using the masjid proper, the dome and the inner courtyard. And the Hindu community was using the outer courtyard where the Ramchandra lies. And this is exactly the partition that I personally offered to Paramacharya. That we shall build a wall between these two areas, give you the entire outer court, and you can build a temple as big as you like. Now they say, let the domes be split. This was said by the government, some government representative earlier.
Okay, so in a real sense, there are echoes in this judgment of what you were talking about earlier. It's a bit of an irony and a pity that what you were saying wasn't accepted earlier. But let's come to another aspect. Given that the land is to be split three ways, and given therefore that the Sunni Waqf Board can do what they want with their share of that property, would you be happy for a mosque to come up side by side with the temple? Many people have often said that that would be the ideal solution, and it would reflect the secular brotherhood that has kept India's Muslims and Hindus together. It will be a symbol of that. Would you accept that?
It's not the question of any one party accepting to that. It has to be either a court verdict. The court has to say that if this is the solution that you have to accept, if you don't accept this solution, then you go in for further litigation or anything else. Because let us presume that the Supreme Court upholds the verdict of the Allahabad bench as it is in toto. Even then what happens? It comes to the same solution, that the land is split. Now who will get which land? Now this one of in fact all the three judges including Justice Khan has suggested that the deity has a legal importance. It is a place of worship, and Hindus hold the deity in the place in very high esteem. So there is a status quo to be maintained. The deity to be displaced has not been said by none of the judges. That means what happens is, even if a temple is to be built, it will be built in the same place where the Ram Lala is Virajman.
Absolutely, but I made a different point. Now, I said that the other part that flows from the judgment, particularly from the reconciliation elements where they split the land in three, is that you could have a mosque side by side, and that to many Indians would be a perfect representative symbol of the Hindu-Muslim brotherhood that we cherish or at least aspire to. Would you accept that?
No, it's a question of how this issue is approached. Once the judgment is read thoroughly, once the issue goes to Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court verdict comes.
So you're hoping that when it goes to the Supreme Court, you get the whole thing rather than just one side?
It's not the question of one getting the other.
Very quickly.
You see, the Paragat, the so-called Paragat manifestation, miraculous manifestation of Lord Rama, take place in the inner courtyard, not where it is now Birajaman.
Oh, so in other words, this is a little bit of history or tradition that the judges have ignored or overlooked?
Not only...
But let's not get locked into that. It's an interesting point, but you must accept that it is a bit of a side issue. Mr. Digvijay Singh, now that the judges have given 3 months to the different parties to try and sort out how they will divide this into 1/3, and the judges have also said that there can be compromises so that if someone wants more from one area, the government can give more out of the 67 acres it holds. Do you think the time has come for the government to take a little initiative and help the 3 parties come to a reconciliation, or is it too early for that?
Well, the government alone can't handle it. All political parties and all contesting parties have to get together to resolve this. But I think the time has now come for an amicable settlement.
When you say all political parties have to get together, are you suggesting that the BJP, the left parties, some of the smaller parties in the UP need to deliberately come together on what platform to try and bring the contestants or the litigants together? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, what I'm trying to say is again go back to the judgment of 94 by the Supreme Court. Because in this case, any decision either way is no solution. We have to bring all the parties together and bring about a settlement amicably.
That undoubtedly, Yashwant Sinha, is a sentiment that you would endorse. But given that at least one party, the Sunni Waqf Board, have already announced that they will be going in appeal to the Supreme Court, what hope can there be for the reconciliation element of the Allahabad High Court coming to fruition? Is there just an aspiration therefore?
Karan, I don't endorse that suggestion at all. Why has this lasted 6 decades? Because the political process in the country, including the Parliament of India, could not find a solution. And ultimately, it was the judiciary which everyone trusted to give us a verdict. A verdict has come from the High Court, a verdict could come from the Supreme Court. I don't think we should pursue that route at all of any out-of-court settlement at this stage. I am very clear in my mind that the final verdict of the Supreme Court should be allowed to be pronounced, and that everyone should fall in line and accept that verdict of the Supreme Court, whatever it may be. And that will be the ultimate and final solution of this long festering problem.
In which case, Sitaram Yechury, if everyone has a right to go to the Supreme Court, and if everyone believes we must wait for the Supreme Court's final verdict before we do anything, what value does the verdict announced today have?
Well, the value it has is that it has kept the judicial process rolling. There were title deed suits that were filed in the court. There is today different opinions saying that the title deeds have not been really settled. That leaves the option open, and the court itself has said that if you are not satisfied, you have the right to appeal. Now, if that happens, we will have to wait and see if the Supreme Court admits those appeals. Then all the questions you are asking about the role of the government in arriving at this reconciliation, division of the land, all that becomes infructuous. So therefore, as I said earlier, A, we'll have to study the judgment properly. B, we'll have to wait till the entire judicial process is completed, which, by the way, is the only way in a modern secular democratic republic that India is. Disputes of such nature can be resolved.
Okay. Soli Sorabjee, 2 quick questions. How starkly different from the Allahabad High Court judgment that was delivered today might the outcome of an appeal to the Supreme Court be? Could the Supreme Court come up with an answer that is almost completely different in every extent?
Could be possibility. But the question is, Karan, if I may take you up on the thing you said earlier, even by pending appeal to the Supreme Court, is it not possible to make some efforts on the line of reconciliation or amicable solution on the line suggested by the Allahabad High Court?
Can I interrupt there? Because if everyone has a right to go to the Supreme Court, will they bother to pursue the line of reconciliation and compromise, the three-way split suggested by the Allahabad High Court. It seems to me that if you pursue one, you don't go and appeal to the Supreme Court. And if you're going and appeal to the Supreme Court, why waste your time trying to divide the land between the three of you?
No. You go to the Supreme Court, that's your constitutional right. But it doesn't prevent you from making a attempt at amicable solution. In case before the matter reaches the Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court decides we may have the happy, maybe I'm being utopian, you may have almost a solution on most of the matters. Now mind you, Justice Verma in that 1994 judgment which Digvijay Singh referred to really expressed that hope at the end of it. It will be only if both sides feel that this is the place where both can worship, which is the place where both can exist side by side, and maybe the High Court took a cue even from that sentiment expressed by Justice Verma. But I don't see why no attempt should be made.